he has been working in the Detroit context over the last 5 or 6 years. And we've been involved in a series of experiments. What these efforts have in common is a kind of interest in bridging the perceived gap between social and formal practice by creating this kind of synthesis between aesthetics, social enterprise, and cultural programming. We have attempted to counter austerity measures with pageantry. In the process, we have looked at ways that architecture, blurring the bounds with artistic practice, might gain agency, might participate in public discourse, and might address the perennial criticism of the discipline, namely its contingency on power and power. So I'd like to say that the title of this talk today is almost positive. I would like to say that I'm positive, really, I'm quite positive. In a way that's fairly compromising when affiliated with that kind of unapologetic internal optimism that we all need to have in order to work in complex cultural and economic contexts. But the term needs a qualification also, and we imagined it as a kind of oasis for illicit teen activity. So we ourselves crawled into this very large factory, and we realized that it was sort of an illegal cultural center where teens were having a really great time. And so we built what we imagined was a poor man's Leviathan, coupled with a kind of cheap James Turrell, where it was a pavilion, really. It was without electricity or heat, and it reached for lighting effects and superimposed 2 perspectival views onto the same cone of vision. So one was material, and one was a kind of sliced perceptual possibility through lighting effects. Once you exited the pavilion, you could understand what the constructive logics of the geometric whole might be. And since I'm an architect, I have to show you a diagram. So this is the diagram of the project. This is the whole, so it's 120,000 square feet, and there's just a little boiler room that we found in the middle of the factory, and that's where we inserted our construct. And then ultimately we also made a slice in the wall so that there was no normative threshold into this pavilion, and you had to discover it by doing something illicit. Funny enough, we left some booties, like those that when you go to a really fancy exhibition and get to go on the booties because the floor is precious. We left the booties just outside the crack, and people over the course of 2 years continued using our booties, while at the same time leaving all kinds of other personal detritus on the interior of the pavilion.
In Miramar gave me no pain, for I recollected that the chivalry had come to invade Italy like bands of robbers. I remarked that if this triumphal arch was a memorial of the victories of the Romans over the chivalry, it was likewise a monument of the triumph of time over the Romans.
That was our joke. Okay. We also have explored the idea of using the atmosphere as an abundant and ambient resource. In particular, we are interested in the particulates, the vapors, the invisible fields that make up the ubiquitous ether that conditions our experience. We think that by calibrating these elements, we can potentially cultivate and train ethereal production of frost, for example, making the material of the environment explicit on the surface of buildings. So we worked with the physics department at the University of Michigan, and I don't know if y'all know what frost is. I mean, you're in Mexico, so you probably don't know what frost is. But it's this very thin layer of ice that forms ethereally when the conditions are just right. Like, even if you live in the terrifying scenario of Detroit where it's so cold, you might see frost 3-4 times a year. It's like really a special condition that happens on your car or on your windows. So we were thinking, what a terrible environment we live in, how little economic resource we have, but if we can train frost into fruition, we can start using that kind of climatic condition to make free ornament. And we were very excited about that. And then we were also thinking that electrostatics could train frost to act badly or well, depending on how we used electrical current culled from solar panels or buildings. This was our idea. So we were like, when we get these kinds of experiences, we get very excited because frost is paying attention to us. And we imagined ways that we could create environments that were sort of sensitive both to the conditions of our ubiquitous climate, but also sensitive to the possibility of creating messaging systems on surfaces without us necessarily being there. We like to make models that we stick into refrigerators to just see how it would look. So in other words, we were producing house coats, and this is very much a work in progress because so far we haven't been able to stop the system from electrocuting small birds. We also have a discernible affinity for graphic punch. So we designed, for example, in a gallery, the self-proliferating selfie baton. We were invited to exhibit architectural representations at the Uho Gallery, and although we love architectural representations, we really hate showing them. So instead, we built a kind of inhabitable supergraphic where visitors could fancy themselves as scale figures in their own red carpet moment. So this is a gallery that's on Hollywood Boulevard, so I don't think you can see this image, but the walkway has all of those fancy stars that people photograph themselves next to. And overall, this entire district is very flamboyant and very exciting and has large theaters. And architecture and architectural galleries simply cannot compete. So again, we plucked those stars, we projected them onto a sphere, we created cones, we booleaned them through slices of plywood, and we kept things cheap. And as a result, we were able to create certain affordances for social experience, where people imagined that they were the stars in particular scenarios. This is the view where you're perpetually foreshortening the view back from the interior of the gallery back toward the streetscape. Another technique that we use continuously is this kind of ontological Derridian notion of creating a signifier that can't get back to its original source, but that there remains the possibility, and it's an implicit possibility, of cognitive pleasure in the layering of time and meaning without getting into a kind of reference that's very specific to a historical moment. So we're looking for a way to get away from the neo-como or the kind of architectural style of contemporaneity, but to layer perception so that we create the possibility of a sense of both the familiar and the renewed in one instance. So one thing that we worked on is creating sets for instigation of public programming in open fields, in open environments. Of course, this has something to do with our dearth of architecture in these conditions, and with the possibility of activating open space for public programming. This is a chunk of the set for the Detroit African Orchestra Opera, and it comes from working in spaces like this. This is a typical venue in Detroit. It's called the Bluebird Inn, and it's a place where there was an enormous amount of vanguard experimentation. Of course, it's abandoned like most of the venues for music in Detroit. But if you walk into the interior, you encounter a stage that looks something like this. And this stage is where John Coltrane played every time he came to Detroit. And we were really struck by the quality of the stage, the scale of the stage. I mean, it's hard to imagine more than 3 people on it, and actually 7 people play on it all at once, very, very tightly packed together. But also the vernacular sensibility of the backdrop. The thin plywood, the sparkle motion glitter applied to house paint, the simple geometry, and we wanted to co-opt some of that in our aesthetic practice. So we looked at the Bluebird and the Phelps Lounge and the Apex, we looked at the shape of the stages, we looked at their backdrops, we looked at how much glitter was being used, we looked at the color schemes, and we tried to morph them together into a composite that could tell the story of each of them simultaneously without referring to one particular place at one time. And so we launched this set in an urban farm called the Oakland Avenue Urban Farm. And of course, this is the absolutely necessary diagram. How would you do without the diagram of how we put it together? And then we instigated an open air opera in 3 acts. So these are some of the musicians who played. This is the beat jazz cyborg Onyx Ashanti, who is a techno-utopian magic producer who prints his own 3D responsive instrument, and so he's playing his body. But our own work is very non-technological, So we're always working, our basic building block is the size of our truck. So whenever we build anything, we always try to build everything to the maximum scale of our capacity. The unit has to be a 4x8, so it has to fit into a flatbed truck. Then once and then the other portion is, how do you get as many people to build it collectively as quickly as possible, given that we're always sort of challenged. And then you can reconstruct it. For example, we're reconstructing for the San Miguel. And so the third issue that we tackle is the kind of situational complicity, and it's very different from the situationists of the mid-20th century. But we're always testing architecture's capacity to sponsor activity. We're interested in creating relationships between structures, spaces, and things, and calibrating those relationships as urban scenographies that have logistical elements, that have programming, that include people and environments, so that we work to generate the possibility of a communication outside the conventional bonds of social stratification. All that to say is, like, how can we make objects that pop algorithmic social bubbles with intention? So we built this thing, which is an arch. It's an architectural arch, very blingy again, very ostentatious intentionally. And it was a response to the fact that in 2013, the Detroit experienced the largest municipal bankruptcy in the US. And before that instant, they had already shut down their arts council. And of course, Detroit instrumentalizes art practice for urban regeneration quite a bit. If you read about how much the city is selling its art possibilities. It's ironic that there's no governmental entity to advocate for or support the activity of the artists in the city. So the Detroit Culture Council was a series of public meetings that were ignited by artists and cultural leaders that aimed to address the growing need for a Detroit Department of Cultural Affairs. In this inaugural event, we brought together leaders and arts advocates and curators and political policymakers and educators and philanthropic organizations, and we talked about what form such an institutional entity might take. So literally, it's, again, you can't tell, but it's in chunks. It attaches to any underused building, so you can literally take the home and attach the arch to your home, and then your home becomes the nomadic Detroit Culture Council, and transforms the site, however ephemerally, into something very ostentatious, public, and institutional. The object itself is made out of vernacular building parts. It refers to architectural elements that have disappeared or still exist. It includes contemporary arts practices that are imaged in the arch. Of course, it has its Afrofuturist signifiers, culled from Sangha. It has pheasants, because pheasants are just ubiquitous at this point. And it has a kind of reference to vegetative vivacity. And that's, this is the basic idea again. We also have gold chairs matching the whole arch. And then it flips on, and then people stand up and speak about their aspirations for cultural institutions.